Hello.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
A very good afternoon. Friends, a very good afternoon to you all. Good afternoon. Not coming, not coming. This sound is not.
No, you are.
Hello. Mic check. Hello.
Not yet. Not enough.
Mic check. Hello.
Only one, I think this.
Mic check. Hello.
Begin.
Hello. Hello, mic check. Friends, a very good afternoon to you all. I invite everyone who is around the auditorium to come over and take your front seats. Kindly, I humbly request all those who are around the auditorium to come over and take your humble seats in the auditorium. Once again, friends, a very good afternoon, and I'm sure you had a wonderful lunch and a great nap or a great break. I welcome you back warmly and affectionately. We truly appreciate your keen interest and enthusiasm. Friends, gear up for a lovely session, the final one, the 8th session in the general. The focus is synodality and subalterns. None other than Reverend Dr. Father Maria Arulraja, S.J., Director, Institute of Dialogue with Cultures and Religions, Loyola College, Chennai, is all set to oversee the session with his hallmark approach. Let's then welcome the lovely moderator and all the 4 presenters this afternoon with a thunderous applause. Friends, may I take this opportunity to introduce the one and only, the moderator, Father Maria Arulraja, S.J., who is currently the director of the IDCR Loyola College, Chennai. He spent his invaluable time and resources as Dean of Studies in Arulkadal Jesuit Theology Center, Chennai, for 20 long years. While teaching theology, sacred scriptures, and religious studies for 27 long years in the SET Seminary and other centers of higher learning in the country, such as Vidyajyoti, Jnanadeepa, St. Peter's, St. Alphonsus, Vidyadeep College, Jnanajyoti, St. Paul's, and Madras University. He, with his interdisciplinary approaches from subaltern perspectives, has authored 10 books and contributed over 160 research articles to various international and national journals. He has the distinction of lecturing and presenting papers in USA, Australia, South Korea, Philippines, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Thailand, and Sri Lanka. Father Maria continues his dialogical engagement with various people's movements and the marginalized groups. As a seasoned animator, he conducts retreats, theotalks, and motivational trainings across the country. If you are interested in having a retreat preacher, you will find one here. Also, any animations. Father, we welcome you to this afternoon session. Over to the moderator. Let's once again put our hands together to Father Arulraja.
Thank you, dear organizers. You know, if the church is distanced from the subalterns, it's like committing suicide. the church doesn't have any reason for existing if it is distanced from the subalterns, marginalized. This session is about hitting the hardcore concern of addressing the inner heartbeat of the subalterns for a credible subalternity. The first paper would be in the page number 44. We move on to Dr. Michael. After presenting, he'll be flying to Bombay immediately. That's why the first is presenting as the first paper. You know, be it at the level of Bombay University or even the Pontifical Commission for Interreligious Dialogue, he's the person. Be it at the level of CBCA commissions, and also even in terms of a simple classroom, reaching out to the field trips and so on, he's the one. Michael, intercultural parishes, over to you, straight away.
Good afternoon. The process of listening to various bodies, organizations in India, we, the Archdiocese Commission for Interreligious Dialogue in Mumbai, wanted to have a listening to other religious leaders, what they think about the Catholics and the church in India for the last 75 years. That is from the time of independence. So on 13th March 2022, we organized a gathering requesting the Hindus, Muslims, Jains, Buddhists to tell us what do you think about Catholics and the church in India. And we already told them that we will not ask any question, be frank, and you know us well. And during this time, something which emerged, 1 or 2 points, I would like to begin with that. So almost all of them said, there is a disconnect between what you people believe and the liturgy what you celebrate and the life what you live. So there is a disconnect. That's what they began to point out. Secondly, they began to say, we wonder how such a small Christian community, only 2.3%, so much divided. So I take up from here. We hear a lot of Catholics are moving to different sects. And some of the Catholics in some regions in Maharashtra, they leave to Buddhism. They migrate to Buddhism. So when we begin to analyze what could be the reasons, we begin to see one of the things, especially the migrant Catholics, they begin to think they do not have so much acceptance in the parishes which they belong. So from this, I developed a paper, Building Intercultural Parish Communities for a Synodal Church. Our synodal journey must be future-looking. So it is expected that by 2050, nearly half of the population of India would be in the urban areas. As urbanization takes place, many Catholics from different parts of India will be migrating to cities for job opportunities, better educational facilities, and for other better economic prospects. Already, the mega and global cities in India have mixed Catholic populations in our parishes. This number and plurality will increase as days go by. The Catholic population in the mega cities will reflect the overall Christian population from different states of Indian Union. Accordingly, to the 2021 census, the distribution of Christians in different parts of India shows that nearly half of the country's Christian population lives in South India. The 5 southern states, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, and Telangana, account for 1.28 crore, that is 46% of India's Christians. Among them, Kerala alone is home to 22.07% of the total Christians in the country, followed by Tamil Nadu with 15.88%. The 7 northeastern states account for 28.1% of the Christian population. Goa accounts for 1.3% of the Christian population in India. The rest of the country is home to less than 25% of the total Christians in the country. Therefore, the Catholic migration to mega cities are mainly from the states of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Mangalore in Karnataka, Goa, Mumbai in Maharashtra, and northeastern states, and the Adivasis from Chota Nagpur region. A very small number of Catholics migrate to these mega cities from other parts of India. These Christians are coming to cities with their own distinctive faith experience. This is very important. These Christians are coming to cities with their distinctive faith experiences, church histories, and liturgical practices from their native land. Therefore, many of our metropolitan urban parishes are characterized by Catholics from multicultural communities. One of the increasing challenges of urban parishes is to build a witnessing and effective Christian community. We are talking about witnessing community of communion, participation, and mission. This must take place in the mega cities with the plural Catholic population with the different cultures, languages, and ethnic communities. Among others, the greatest challenge to build a witnessing intercultural community in a parish is the cultural problem of ethnocentrism. For us, say I am coming from an anthropological perspective, the theological jargons, whatever we hear, unless it is lived concretely in the world, people do not take it seriously. They are only theological jargons. So, when we begin to see that in a parish with the different cultural groups, language groups, ethnic communities, if they are able to be a witnessing community, then the people begin to see there is something different. So, what is the problem in recognizing this pluralism and building a witnessing community? I identify one of the anthropological problems known as ethnocentrism. What is ethnocentrism? Anthropologists describe and analyze the universal human tendency for ethnocentrism, whereby an individual or group and or nation consider their culture as superior and normative in relation to others. Accordingly, the prejudice people's behavior and explain differences as if they were the result of perceived physical and mental differences, that is called racism, or spiritual or moral differences, elitism. Ethnocentrism contains an elements of paternalism, triumphalism, racism. It leads to colonialism and the imposition of culture of an ethnic group or a regional group who exerts more power in a community. The feeling of superiority is subconscious and goes down to smallest details. Even the most charitable and most humble member of a community will have a certain amount of ethnocentrism in his or her system. This is because each cultural group is convinced of its understanding, evaluating and patronizing other cultures as though only their culture is correct and normative to others. Each cultural group is convinced that its way of life is the best way of life. The phenomenon of ethnocentrism among the Catholics in a multicultural parishes in the urban areas reduces the witnessing value and disturbs the synergy level of the parish community. Therefore, both the clergy and the parishioners of different cultural communities must understand the role of culture in their lives. Catholics coming from Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Goa, and Chotanagpur, and other places have received their Catholic faith in different liturgical traditions, in different cultural backgrounds of the missionaries who introduced Christianity to the people. For example, in Kerala, they have their own tradition, their own liturgy. Similarly, if you go to the next, the Tamil Nadu, the Jesuit Madurai mission introduced certain way of believing, understanding Christianity. If you come to, say, Bangalore or Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, where the Christian missionaries went, they introduced Christianity in their own cultural terms. But now the migrants in the mega cities, they have taken their faith, what they received in their tradition, and begin to live in a multi-cultural parishes. And the parish priest may be coming from one cultural group, and he has been trained and imbibed to understand Christianity in a particular way. So he begins to look at other cultural expressions in the city. This is Hindu. No, you are not allowed. No, this is tribal. This is not allowed. No. So he begins to think that ethnocentrism, the way we have been living and expressing Christian life in our singing, in our liturgical dress, the way we organize other factors connected to liturgy is the correct one. All your liturgical expressions are not allowed here. So there is a tension. I have studied in Mumbai this tension in various parishes, and I have been dealing with this problem. That's why I begin to see the migrant groups from Bengal, the migrant groups from Chotanagpur, the migrant groups from Tamil Nadu, the migrant groups from Andhra and, say, Karnataka, their expressions are considered, no, it is Hindu, because they begin to take processions and all that. So the parish priest thinks his method is the correct one. So what we begin to see, we need to understand this faith tradition of the historical way each cultural group received their faith, and then how they come to the city, and they cannot immediately change over to a common practice. It has to be a gradual one. Moreover, we begin to see the western region of India, Kerala, Mangalore, Goa, Mumbai, they have a pattern of culture. We can call it, they are coming from a horticultural, agricultural background. No, this Western group, Western region, they are coming from a horticultural lens of understanding culture. The people from the eastern side, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, the Orissa, they come from agricultural mindset and outlook. And the Chotanagpur tribals and northeastern tribals, they are coming from a hunting and gathering cultural mentality, outlook to life. Similarly, the western region people, they come from a family-oriented culture. The Eastern region people coming from village-oriented culture, and the Adivasis and the tribals are coming from a clan-oriented culture. These differences are not understood by the parishioners and the parish priest. So there is a conflict, and we are not able to be a witnessing community. Therefore, it is very important to understand how the parish community is affected by the above cultural process of ethnocentrism. To grow from this ethnocentrism, we need to build intercultural parishes with promotion of synodality to create witnessing and synergized Catholic community in a multicultural parishes. There are few suggestions how this can be done.
3 minutes more.
Yes. So first of all, it is related to formation. Priests should be aware of this cultural phenomena and the historical context in which each cultural group received their faith and they have come here to live their Christian life. That has to be understood by the parish priest. Formation should be introduced during the seminary training. We all should overcome our ethnocentric attitude with our Christian faith. Intercultural formation is required. Inclusive communities in parish, pastoral council, and other bodies. An integrated celebration of different cultural groups on a parish day. Lay people in a parish should be given workshop for understanding cultural factors affecting the parish and the conflict arising from it. Lastly, the essential dimensions of communion, participation, and mission should be the motto of each parish in all their training programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. You can find the domination of SVDs in this particular panel. They are well known for cultural sensibilities. One here, the last one also with the cultural sensibilities. My dear friends, we shall have 3 interventions with Michael, just 3 interventions one after another, so that with a single shot he can give us his perception. Over to you right now, because he has to move out over to the floor right now. Anything that you like to talk about in terms of intercultural sensibilities? Are we a narcissistic church, navel-gazing church, or getting out of our own cultural sensibilities to move out to the people? Because it is going to be an intercultural parish. Over to you, perhaps with 3 interventions. Okay. Pass on the microphone over there. Brief bullets, and again you will be receiving brief bullets.
Thank you so much, Father. My question to you straight away is, if the Synod is focusing on walking together, journeying together, then we should also take into our liturgy, our culture and so on. Very recently, the inculturation, the way we celebrate, has been kind of put into question. If I'm not wrong, even the directives from CCBI about avoid certain inculturation, certain rights, expressing our Indian things. How do you respond to it? If we don't walk with our culture, if we don't inculcate into our liturgy, in our dress, our worship, a manifestation of our church buildings and so on, then how are you going to understand walking together in the Indian soil with our own brother and sister belonging to different religions? Thank you.
Any other intervention? We can collect them together. Over there, last one. Are you intervening? The last one. Okay. Yes. Microphone here. Yeah. Thank you.
Interculture problems, if you enter in, it will be a very dangerous and very difficult situation. Why it is? When the migrated people go to different countries, it is not only they carry their faith, but they along with them, they carry their language also. It is a problem you enter into, number 1. Number 2. Number 3 is that when in a particular set of situation, people of the local area search for land, search for jobs, search for so many other things. When the people come from other places, they steal their jobs, they steal their land, or they steal something else. it will be a very, very dangerous thing. How do you address it?
The first question, inculturation, it all depends upon what you understand of inculturation. I understand inculturation is the way the Christian community lives the faith in the culture of the people. If it is a cosmopolitan mega city, what is the culture of a mega city where there are many cultural groups living there? There, how the Christian community, with all their variety, they begin to live the Christian life as a witnessing community. There is no fixed point that you must wear this dress or that dress, that the community has to make a decision. Okay, so but the essence of inculturation is living the faith, celebrating the Christian faith in the culture and the soil of the people. Okay. Coming back, whatever you have said, that is not going to stop the migration to mega cities. Whether they are going to steal the job of others or whether they are going to purchase the house of others, that is not going to, it is a process. It is a phenomena where it is not the Catholics who are introducing this phenomena. No. There are so many, every religious group, other language groups, everybody is migrating. So the Christians also migrating. So why do you begin to say they are stealing the job? I don't understand this. Yeah. Somebody else.
Good. Okay.
Very good afternoon, panelists, and Father, good afternoon. This inculturization I understand as not being received by the administrative hierarchy, because Jesus Christ was first a Jew. Jesus Christ was first a Jew, then only he became a savior. I, born in Karnataka, I am first, my nativity belongs here, my identity is with my language, with my culture, with my tradition, within which I find Christ. If I cannot relate to Christ with all this is there, then it will be very hard for me to relate to Christ who is outside. You people, all scholars know that the inculturization which St. Paul brought in and which was by the other apostles are entirely different. So the culturization has to start from top to down, where they absorb the local flavor. Local is universal. If that is understood, then we have inculturization, very beautiful inside Christianity. That has to come from top to down. The acceptance of the local culture, tradition, identity, and then only the Christian placement comes in, is what
So
my
you say
understanding.
the top-down model of inculturation is more effective, you say.
Yes, sir.
Your response.
But I am saying that there has to be inculturation. But the type of inculturation you are meaning is very narrow. It is not merely a liturgical inculturation. The inculturation is so much affects one's life, a community's life, because of the Christian faith. The expressions inculturation is not only to India. It is a process in the world. Okay? Every culture has to be responding to the Christian vision of life. And that affects our economic, social, political, religious, every aspect. But the way you are expressing it may be that I cannot give you a rule here. Okay.
Thank you.
Father,
Thank
one-
you.
It was only about saying the inculturization is Vasudevaka Kutumbam. The universal church you are talking about is Vasudeva Kutumbam, which we are talking about for centuries here.
Good. We shall move towards that. Thank you, Michael, for your insights. We learn from you the culture is not a stagnant platform, it's a burning, boiling platform. Are we honest enough to live out the gospel in a culture-friendly manner? It's an organic process of intercultural, dialogical, incultural learning. It's a process. You go ahead with your journey. We accompany you even on the flight. Thank you, Michael. We shall give a big hand for his good.
We thank Father S.M. Michael and we show our humble gratitude to Father S.M. Michael by presenting a memento. I invite Mr. Thomas to hand over the memento and Father Michael to receive it humbly. Father Michael is my own professor, extremely unassuming and wonderful professor. Father, a wonderful journey to you and a great time in your mission.
Good. My dear friends, we move on to Cosmon right now. One of the burning issues in the Indian church is the question of Manuvada, untouchability, the graded inequality, very well celebrated at the innermost heart as well as outside, in the parliament or even in the sacristy, everywhere. How to win over or how to annihilate the evil of casteism. Here comes a man coming from the lineage of Ambedkar, Cosmon from Kumbakonam, with his double doctorate, and also he was working in the CBCI Commission, and still he is supposed to be a tiger coming out with this new ideologies of totality of liberation. Over to Cosmon.
Thank you, Father Maria Raja, for your kind words of introduction. Professors like Dr. Felix Wilfred used to say, for subalterns, particularly Dalits, theology is not only theologia, but theophonia, theographia. Therefore, in that line, I would like to sing a song, only 2 lines. Manushangada, Nanga Manushangada, Manushangada, Nanga Manushangada, Ponna pola, Avana pola, Yettu sanu osaramulla, Manushangada, Nanga Manushangada. The meaning, we are humans. We are humans. We are humans like you and he. Dear friends, I would like to thank Professor Felix Wilfred and my dear Father Lawrence for giving me this opportunity. Dear co-panelists, bishops, I am very happy to see and share my reflections from my experience, interaction with Dalits and Dalit movements, particularly my experience as the Executive Secretary in the Commission for Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribes and Backward Classes for 6 years, from 2006 to 2012. Today also I am in touch with many movements. Dear friends, journey has a destination. And in the case of the church, it is the reign of God. Fuller life, John chapter 10, verse 10. That is peace, justice, human dignity, and reconciliation. And we can journey as strangers, family members, friends, relatives, co-workers, and so on. To understand where we are, where we need to journey towards, we need to raise pertinent questions. In our local church, Indian church, who are those who walk together? Who are those who seem further apart? You see here a symmetry divided by a wall. On the one hand, we see dominant caste people sleeping. On the other hand, we see the Dalits are sleeping. Even in death, while journeying towards God, they are separated. In our local church, who are those who walk together, who are those who seem further apart, how God is speaking to us through voices we many times ignore, sometimes purposefully ignore. How are the laity listened to, especially Dalits, tribals, Adivasis, women and young people? What facilitates or inhibits our listening? How do prayer and liturgical celebrations actually inspire and guide our common life and mission in our community? Do they arise from the culture and common concepts of the people, as Father Michael pointed out, especially from the Dalit community? Here, I am showing children with parai music, which is the integral part of Dalit culture. Let us move on to contemporary Dalit Christian scenario. I am here quoting from CBCI Dalit policy, which was brought out in the year 2016. Many of you may be aware of it, and some of you may not be aware of it. But when you go to the CBCI website, there you can find CBCI Dalit policy. Dalits are about 12 million out of 19 million members of the Catholic Church. Dalit Christians experience the same measure of discrimination, violence, and exclusion as other Dalits. They cannot avail the protection of the Prevention of Atrocities Act, since under the law, they are not deemed to be members of scheduled castes. Another side discrimination is by the state. Dalit Christians are sandwiched between the state and the church. Presidential Order 1950, paragraph 3 says, no person who professes a religion different from Hinduism, Sikhism, and Buddhism shall be deemed to be a member of scheduled caste. Again, it is quoted in CBCI Dalit policy numbers 17 to 18. Dalit Christians are socially known and treated as distinct groups within their own religious communities. This is a fact. 2 cemeteries, 2 beards, and 2 places within the same church. Rural Dalit Christians have a much higher illiteracy rate and much smaller proportion of graduates. I am working in a parish, Papanasam, 12 substations, very few graduates, many dropouts, particularly among Dalit girls, many dropouts. Professor Satish Deshpande, it is a study which was taken by the Delhi University under the guidance of the National Commission for Minorities. It was brought out in the year 2008. He observes, universally practiced forms of discrimination and exclusion include social and cultural segregation, expressed in various forms of refusal to have any social interaction, endogamy, expressed through the universal prohibitions on Dalit, non-Dalit marriages, and through severe social sanctions on both Dalits and non-Dalits who break this taboo. Even in our matrimonial advertisements, any caste is welcome except scheduled caste. In many of our marriage advertisements, we can see. I am just showing, even today, Dalit children are sitting separately in the schools. It is taken in Tamil Nadu. And 30-year-old Dalit men killed in Andhra Pradesh weeks after intercaste marriage. This is a phenomenon which is taking place all over the country. And we have 3 rites: Syro Malabar, Syro Malankara, and Latin rite. And Syro Malabar Catholic Church in India has about 4.2 million. And Syro Malankara Catholic Church in India has about 3 million Dalit Catholics. And Latin rite in India. In the existing three rites: Latin, Syro-Malabar, Syro-Malankara. Dalit Catholics are strangers. They are not companions. They are strangers. And secondly, the culture of Dalit is different from what is known as the mainstream. Dalit religiosity is a distinct religiosity. For example, I don't want to use the term Hindu because Hinduism is different from Sanatanism. What is Sanatanism? Sanatanis follow casteism in a rigid form and they practice untouchability. So, the culture of Sanatanis is different from the culture of Dalit. Therefore, Dalit religiosity is different from the dominant caste religiosity or caste religiosity. Dalit religiosity is very much connected to production, protection, procreation. So therefore, this is not something which is related to the so-called spiritual realm. It is related to what is there today. It is not about mukti, it is about bhukti, this worldly life. And Dalit Catholic culture, which is quite distinct and consists of complex elements drawn from their traditional Dalit culture and popular Catholic religiosity. They have developed a unique manner of living faith, living as an oppressed, humiliated and marginalized people in the society and in the church. Dalits have cultivated a fresh reading of the Christian scripture, supporting their theology and spirituality. Here, I would like to recall two eminent people sitting here, Father Maria Raja, Sister Shalini, who contributed in evolving Dalit biblical commentary edited by late Professor Dr. James Massey. We gratefully remember him. Today, there is a strong proposal for Dalit individual church or right. The struggle of the Dalits for recognition as an individual church may not be easy, but the Orientals, Syro-Malankara, Syro-Malabar, they have set an example through their experience on how to become an autonomous church and find equality and recognition in the communion of churches. Dalit individual church will be the first fully Indian origin, individual church and right.
5 minutes, 5 minutes.
Okay. So now people are, especially from the south, they are demanding Dalit individual church. How God is speaking to us through the voices of Dalits and Dalit Catholics. How are they listened to? What facilitates or inhibits our listening? Theologian Maria Raja speaks about multifaceted suffering experienced by Dalit children, women and men. The various forms of violence are brute violence, structural violence and symbolic violence, which are interwoven and undergone in their everyday life. This is brute violence on women against which they are struggling. It is structural violence. You see Safai Karamchari, who is compelled to clean the sewage. God not only suffers with them, but expresses his righteous anger in the form of struggles for equal rights, protest literature, Dalit theology, and so on. Very often the voices for equal treatment are ignored or met with stiff resistance by caste forces in the society and in the church. Progressive statements and promises are made by the church leaders, but half-hearted implementation by the leadership and lukewarm response. 10-point program in Tamil Nadu, CBCA Dalit policy, which was promulgated in 2016, 6 years ago. Caste spirit and prejudices hinder the people of God to listen to the voices of the Spirit. Interpretation of the Word of God and the celebration of the Eucharist have to facilitate the human dignity and fraternity among the people of God. How do prayer and liturgical celebration actually inspire and guide our common life and mission in our community? Do they arise from the culture and common concerns of the people, especially Dalit community? Caste Christians have a different way of life and culture than the Dalit Christians. Dalit Christians have different modes of worshipping than the caste Christians. They follow their own cultural traditions. See, for example, during All Souls Day, they have their own way of remembering the dead. Then Parai dance, joyful moments, sorrowful moments, and at the time of death, and so on. Then Kummi dance, Kolatam dance. In India, still people attend the Holy Mass in considerable numbers. There are charismatic prayer meetings and conventions attended by a big number of people. But very often they ignore the daily concerns of the people and their human dignity. Liturgical celebrations are yet to address the concerns of the Dalits and challenge the caste consciousness that is against the Eucharistic culture of human dignity and human flourishing. The CBCI Dalit policy observes the egalitarian way of life and inspiring table fellowship radically promoted by the Eucharist are betrayed by the practice of untouchability and the evil of casteism. Recently, I have already pointed out, there is a claim for the Dalit individual church, and this right will anchor its liturgy, spirituality on life-giving aspects of Dalit culture. Life-giving aspects of Dalit culture, it is expressed in one song. நீ ராமன் என்று சொன்னால் நாங்கள் மதுரை வீரன் என்போம், நீ காந்தி என்று சொன்னால் நாங்கள் அம்பேத்கர் என்போம், நீ இந்து என்று சொன்னால் நாங்கள் தலித்து என்று சொல்வோம், நீ பரதம் என்று சொன்னால் நாங்கள் சஞ்சனக்கு சங் என்போம். So, this is a counter culture where Dalit culture is rooted in human dignity, brotherhood, sisterhood, and social justice. What hinders the baptized from being active in mission? What areas of mission are we neglecting? Policy of accommodation. Because the missionaries followed the policy of accommodation, they considered caste untouchability as social factor. But they do not observe that these are things which are against the basic tenets of Christian faith. The first generation of caste Christian leadership reinforced the caste domination within the Catholic community, tolerated and often nurtured untouchable practices in the church. It is given in the article written along with Father Felix Wilfred. This article is in the Indian Journal of Theology, August 2021. There we have brought out how this has been perpetuated by the first generation of caste Christian leadership. The internal factors that hinder the mission of evangelization are caste-based prejudice in relation between Christians and neglect of the potential of Dalits to evangelize. This I would like to underline. Neglect of the potential of Dalits to evangelize. Dalits are in a better position to evangelize today. The wonderful witness of the Dalit Christians of Kandhamal in Odisha is an example. How do we promote participation of Dalit Catholics in decision making within hierarchical structures? Do our decision making methods help us to listen to the Dalit Catholics who are also people of God? So I'm moving to the conclusion. Do I have 1 or 2 minutes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Fine. The CBCI Dalit policy observes that Dalit Christians are the majority in the Catholic Church, but their participation in the level of leadership in the diocesan administration as well as in religious orders is minimum, and at the higher level it is almost nil. Dalit community is yet to see a Dalit cardinal. Waiting for a Dalit cardinal from Dalit community or from Dalit individual church are right. Conclusion. Synodal church is alive in communion, participation and mission. Synodal path in everyday life of the church is made known in the participatory structures such as diocesan pastoral council and so on. But I borrow this idea from Father Felix Wilfred. We need to conduct a scientific study, how far it is inclusive, how far Dalits and tribals are represented in these bodies, from parish council to higher ecclesial bodies. Then participatory structures are powerless. They cannot make decision making, but authoritarian inclinations are ruthless and ugly when Dalit Catholics approach the leadership from the top to the bottom for justice. Therefore, to conclude, the pyramidal caste consciousness in the Indian church has to be inverted by the inclusive, participatory and synodal church, maybe in the form of fourth individual church or rite. Thank you.
Since Cosmon has dealt with a very deeper issue, may I request all of you just with a half a minute of silence to jot down your questions and observations to be addressed towards the end. Together, please jot down. Don't lose the inspiration. Jot down, either in terms of clarification or in terms of question. Half a minute you take. Okay, dear friends, here comes Salesian Margaret, an erudite scholar in terms of addressing the youth as an educationist, as a formator, with your pakka mathematical training as well as the theological training in India as well as in Europe. She has come out with this particular perennial question, the role of the women for enabling the church even to get awakened to the culture of synodality. Over to you, Margaret, straight away.
Thank you. Good evening to one and all. Good evening. Just to wake us up, that's why I'm wishing. Right. Get right. Okay. This is a theme on which I'll be dealing, women in the synodal church. The schema is this, and I'll be dealing in detail. Synod is an opportunity to rediscover deeply and live truly the church's synodal nature, and calls for a synodal being, life, journey, and mission as a prophetic witness of the whole church. The synodality of the synod is to renew the ecclesial life and structure, recommit ourselves to live out God's call for the church today, move towards a church that is more fruitfully at the service of the God's kingdom. Through the baptism, women are to be and to become synodal in their existence, we are, and involvement and mission. Therefore, the aim of the paper is to know, to understand women's role in the synodal church. It is also a tiny campaign for women's full participation and representation in all the process of the synod, both in the local and the global. It is to foster a lived experience of authentic discernment, active participation, genuine co-responsibility for the church's effective mission by both men and women, especially for women. This paper starts with a presentation of this women's ambiguous status or a position in the church and women's mixed response, and situating how God gives us the equal dignity and responsibility, and what was Jesus' inclusion of women in his work of salvation, and what are the efforts that were taken by the church, especially in defining equality of men and women in the synodal vision. and how women, being in a synodal church, dream of a church that is looking for a greater transformation, especially in its processes, action, and also life. It calls for an inclusive attitude and cooperative approach, which calls for a necessary and essential component for the future of the church in the world globally and also particularly in India. What is this ambiguous status of women in the church? In the church, women today are witness to a dual nature. In the Bible, scripture, always we find this women, the synodal church today talking about the term valuing, devaluing, empowering, disempowering. This dual nature is constantly in conflict. Okay. On the whole, the Catholic Church considers women as second-class citizens that continues to exist. Above all, women also aware of the subtle way in which their dignity and their vocation are trampled by the church. Therefore, their presence and participation in many aspects of the church has to be improved. It has improved, but there are certain areas which is not really given proper orientation or proper place. That is jurisdiction, teaching, decision-making, administrative bodies. The presence and participation of women are not sufficient. There is a growing number of women holding an important position. Now we are very aware of it, especially the position that is given in Vatican. Despite the institution's slowness to change, there is a lead, there is a move, there is going to be a change. That is the dream that all of us are having. While the synod have always been exclusively male forum, but the opening that was given by Pope Francis, it is giving us a greater hope. What is being given at Vatican level could also be realized in the local. Therefore, it suggests that change, however small and tiny and slow it could be, but walking together in a spirit of solidarity and fraternity is something very important to bring about a change. Now I am showing a few of them that is being given a greater position at Vatican. Just can have a look at it. A few seconds. Okay. I don't want to miss my time. Pope Francis even changed the canon law to allow women to be lectors and acolytes, giving them a space to participate, especially serving during the Mass. He also appointed a handful of women, which we have already seen, to the higher ranking of the Vatican position and has called women, and he has created space for the greater decision-making, space in the governance of the church. Okay. But however, it continues to hold, that is barring women from ministerial priesthood, which I initiated the other day, ended up. Now, this statement of this Archbishop Justin is something very interesting. There is the institutionalization of eternal subordination, the idea of women being somehow destined to remain subordinate to their male colleagues, not just for the moment, in real time, but forever, but how to, including heaven. If all of us go to heaven, I think even if we land up in hell, we will be having the same subordination feel. Therefore, the Catholic Church must recognize and appreciate the role of women and end the practice or any type of practices that really makes women very submissive laborers. Therefore, there is a sort of anxiety both among men and women. This ambiguous position, there is a space for women for growth, but at the same time they are also pulled down, sufficient space also not given. This is the ambiguous position that we face. In this situation, what is the response of women? There is a mixed response. As we have seen the mixed context, there is also mixed response. For a synod with a theme, the supporters welcome this. There is going to be a greater opportunity in the church for especially in the power dynamics, greater voice to the lay Catholics, especially to women. But the conservative, they think it is going to dilute it. Therefore, these two mixed responses are prevailing in the church. In 2021, there was a meeting held in Rome, Women in Synodality, in which Sister Patricia said, The hopes of the women are that the synodal process must take into consideration women's perspectives, experiences, reflections from the grassroots level to all the levels in the church. They must listen to everyone, okay, everyone, especially including to women, those who suffer of these abuses and hurts by the church and within the church. And Anna Beatrice says, women are the driving force behind the synodality. Therefore, the church that seeks to live a synodal life cannot fail to reflect on the condition and role of women. Okay. Now, the recent two synod that we had on youth and Amazon, that has really given a very positive note that women's contribution was very much appreciated. Therefore, could also be an opening for dreaming of a real synod result that can be very inclusive. And according to Natalia, she said, the synod is a call to change, but there is a fear. Why there is a fear? Because it is not a revolution, as Pope Francis said, she also says, but it is a long process that needs discernment. Therefore, synodality is also a journey that we need to make from I to we. But there is a tension there. When we focus on the tension, that is the terms, that is us and them, placing us and them opposite to one another, then we get fear of each other. Men fearing women or women fearing men. Therefore, listening and taking seriously the voices of women is a prerequisite for the success of the synod. In this context, we want the Vatican's global synod process to succeed. If we want to succeed, then the important topics which none of us like to discuss, especially males, they don't like to discuss about women's ordination or the diaconate or priesthood. But it is at least must listen, because the initiation also is important. One, if not today, one day the dream may be fulfilled. Therefore, we are aware of the enormous good things that are being done, especially in the synodal processes, the involvement of women at different stages. But however, the synodality to take to really a positive tone in the future, but it has to begin in the parish. Whether there is a synodality in the parish, in the diocese, and then go up to Vatican. So that the journey has to begin from within, and then it will end up in the global level. Quoting Virginia, what about the fear? All of us have got as a feminist theologian, but I quote her saying, I would like to situate all these concerns within the framework of synodality. Pope Francis has called for a synodal church, one that works together, where no difference is shown between lay, religious, or clergy. The poster of the synod vividly represents this working together. Yet, the structures that we have to work with do not necessarily facilitate this working together. Therefore, this response continues to be something mixed response. We look at it positively as well as negatively. There are also many men also talk about this, okay? Especially in Ireland, priests said the role of women in the Catholic Church must be addressed by the synodal processes. Otherwise, women are likely to walk away from the church. Patriarchy is the stumbling block to mission. Okay? They are having many meetings, and all the meetings ended up as a failure. Therefore, there is a fear on the part of both men and women that this synod also may end up with a positive result. Okay? Jose Antonio says, the meaning of the synodality in the life of the church is concrete implication for women's participation and contribution. It is an opportunity to live and experience our ecclesiality. There should be a sense of belonging, and then journeying together is very important.
5 minutes.
Okay. If power is considered as a service, then sharing the responsibility with the women shouldn't be a big problem for all of us in accomplishing mission. Okay. So I'm just skipping the scriptural background and which it is being given, taking from the Old Testament and New Testament, and the number of the popes that have taken the initiative to really liberate or to give sufficient space for women. But and they continue up to Pope Francis. They continue to fear not as a person, but as the global church. How we will realize this journey of together, especially the sufficient space that is to be given to women. Okay. There is a gender policy in India which is also acknowledges the equality of women in the Catholic Church. Okay. So what should be the dream of women? Women are dreaming of a transformed society, transformed synodal church where there will be a chance for collective listen, dialogue and discernment. Women feel that this synod will bring about the holistic transformation. Communion as a significant sign of synodality, participation as an irreplaceable presence and involvement of women, and mission as an ongoing journey. This is I am trying to explain how communion has to become the lifestyle of everyone. We have been reflecting on the Trinitarian love and unity. And it is a call for all of us to live together. And women are also, we also need to listen one another and join together and walk together. This is one of the important aspects of living the communion. Participation is something very important for women because it is a continuous process of listening. It is also called the involvement, not only women but laity. As part of the laity, we also need to join hands with them and journey together. Okay. So in many ways, women are qualified today, but whether there is a space for them, for their presence and participation is a question that need to be raised. Okay. So here Pope Francis is telling for religious women, it's not sufficient to pray for the success of the synod, but the greater involvement of our religious women are also very much needed to make this synod something very real. Then mission has to become a synodal journey. Started, but we have to continue till we reach the goal. Okay. I just conclude with a conclusion. As a conclusion, let us do all that we can so that the ambiguous status of the women in the church is being eliminated and second-class treatment is being changed and women's participation and presence is being improved and greater space is being given for the decision making at all the level, and listen to women, especially all that they undergo in the daily life, and then we'll work together as a collaborator, as a person, as in working in partnership with one another, really give hearing to feminine genius, include women in all this, especially, which is a very, very touchy issue of the ordained ministry and empowerment of women, and give focus on this common priesthood of women, including equality and laity, to facilitate all to speak, all young and old and laity and the clergy. Therefore, it becomes a real synodal journey. Therefore, we look for a holistic transformation, considering communion as a significant sign of synodality, participation as an irreplaceable presence of women, involvement and mission as ongoing synodal journey. Let us remember that authentic presence and active participation is crucial for the continuity of the church's mission today. Therefore, we need to establish appropriate ministry for women, especially for religious women, their formation and preparation and involvement and commitment. Make women effective contributors and promoters of synodal being and service to the entire world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. This is once again a deeper issue to be located for tackling it creatively with the real sensibilities of the Trinitarian communion. Please jot down your questions or note down your observations for further discussion towards the end. Please take some time to note down. Make sure that we deepen the issue, deepen the probe into the issue, not remaining at the initial level. Deepen the issue. Feminine genius with the Eucharistic culture. What does it mean? Well, dear friends, here comes the last batsman, Ignatian Sorang, with the tribal sensibilities. Is the director of Sanskritik Kendra Odisha, and he is an educationist, composer, a singer, and also a linguist. As an organic intellectual integrating both the academia as well as the field entry, he has come out with these insights. Synodality and the tribals. Over to Ignatius Soren. We are eager to listen to you. Please come forward.
Good afternoon, friends. Respected Chair, my friends, Synodality and the tribal. Some insights to the breeding grounds of tribal synodality. As people think that tribals are united people and they have got a lot of virtue, but still they are facing a problem. So what is happening? And many asked me, kindly speak something about the source of the unity and happiness and synodality of the tribals. And that is the reason why, though I had given the abstract something different, same thing, but then I have improved on it a little bit. Introduction. Tribal Christians constitute a substantial portion of the Christian population of India, and due to migration, more and more tribals are filling in the big towns and cities where they are forming large Christian communities. So it is not very surprising that in this conference, 4 sessions are given to the tribal reflection. Vincent Ekka, Sanjay Kujur, Rashmi, and me now. This paper is going to reflect on some aspects of synodality in tribal life so that we get some help to deal with the tribal communities. You see, it has got a resource. Tribal community has got a resource. Something has happened. It is golmaal now at the moment. And what has happened, we'll deal with it. And how to go about, we deal with it. This is not to propose a model for universal synodal life. It is rather to consider what it is on the ground level, so as far as the tribals are concerned. So that is what, some people are asking, are the tribals trying to propose some, model for synodality in the church? We are not proposing. We are only speaking about ourselves. For this paper, geographical areas that I covered and the methods I know, area surveyed 2 dioceses, Raulkela Diocese of Odisha and Simdega Diocese of Jharkhand, primary supplementary, and personnel consulted bishops of 2 dioceses, Raulkela and Simdega, and church leaders, men, women, and youth of both the dioceses, priests and religious of both the dioceses, and the common people, men, women, and youth of both the dioceses. So it is basically based on the research on the ground. Basic theme or premise that I am going to deal in this. Tribal community and tribal church is synodal in nature, says Reverend Vincent Barua, the Bishop of Simdega. The tribal people live at the principles of synodality, communion, participation, and mission in their tribal church without naming it, he says. So basically, synodal elements is present in the tribal, these things. And then also people, we had got a huge meeting, some about 260, 270 people were there, all the leaders, priests and religious, lay leaders and the representatives of all the churches. There, one leader says, when we explained to them about synodality, they said, we have been living all these principles in our life and also in our churches. So what is new about it? We have only to go deeper into them and strengthen them. That is what beautiful remark that he gave. And this we are taking for this one. And so in my consideration in this paper, what are the sources? What are the ground realities of the tribal people of synodality? What has happened to them? And what we are going to do on that? That is what we are going to talk. a little bit background, many people do not know the tribal realities in India. So, basically, northeastern states, okay, Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland, Sikkim, and Arunachal, a lot of Christians are there. Central tribal belt. You have got West Bengal, Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh. Okay, I'll show you the map later on. Okay. And others, there are some states in India where there are no tribals at all. So which are they? Haryana, Chandigarh, Punjab, Delhi, Puducherry. You know, in this, according to census 2011, there are no Christians there. Okay. So, and dense tribal population in the central part, I'll show you in the map. Okay. So this is it. This is the map. So this is the northeast, and here the central part of Bengal, Jharkhand, Odisha, and this is Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra. This is called the central tribal belt. This is the concentration of tribal Christians. Concentration of tribal Christians. And in northeast, of course, you have got all, quite a lot. This is the number actually. I have given the number, there may not be enough time. Probably if you find the paper. In the central, this one, how large number of, huge number of tribal Christians are there in this area. Of course, this is the northeast, this is the central tribal belt. Okay, so I have given there, you can see. Many people do not know how many groups of tribals are there. 705 ethnic tribal groups are there. 705. But then tribal communities as such, and use what you call the constitutionally 437 there are. 437. These 705 people are different. They fall under these tribes. One tribe may have only one group, one tribe may have 3 groups, 4 groups, 5 groups, 10 groups like that. So, and these people, we talk about them like Adivasi, original inhabitants of India, or something, the first settlers of India before the Aryans came, whatever, Okay, so synodality, journeying together, breeding grounds of synodality among the tribals. We'll talk about them. And what happened to that? Breeding grounds, tribal synodality breeds on 3 places. What are they? Tribal social organizations and social system. That is where it breeds. Tribal culture, that is where it breeds. Tribal religion, it is where. And all that they had received, community, okay. So the other things like, community living, language, dance and songs, this is very important, but they will fall under this only. Okay, so basically you got 3 breeding grounds. What are they? Tribal social organization, tribal social systems, culture and religion. Okay, they have got a typical tribal social system they have got. They have got their own king. The other day, Dr. Vincent Ekka, he said about that, king and his administrative team is there, plus the Pahan is there, the Pujari is there, okay. And these are all clan-based, tribe-based, locally, district, state, nation. In that level, different level there, clan-based, tribe-based, local level, district level, kingdom or state level, and national level, it goes on different. And everybody has got its own, administrative system. In this, and then in the community living, their relation, everybody is related. And they have got kinship relationship and common interpersonal, personally. In the village, everybody is related. Whether he is a tribal or not, everybody is related. क्या बोलते हैं भाया बहन मामा मामी all that thing, all this sort of relation in the village, so they become one with each other. Shared life, that is where also tribal, this one, synodality begins. Work cooperatives will not get it. I'll try to explain little bit what is work cooperative. Among the tribals, suppose there are 15 houses in one village, tribal village. There is a poor fellow who cannot sow seed in the field. What he does, he goes door to door, tomorrow I'm going to sow seeds, so will you help me? I invite you? So all the 15 houses will come and help this fellow. So in this way, there are many, Madait is one, Madhva is one, Pancha, these are war cooperatives, a different form of war cooperatives in the tribal village. Grain cooperatives, common fishing you will not understand. If somebody has a fish, distant pond or whatever, no, not pond, the band, he will call everybody and everybody will fish. This is how tribal this thing goes. And then such a lot of things, culture, language, dance, feast and festivals, all that thing is there. Advent of Christianity, 1868 they came, and when they came, these people, tribal people accepted. There are reasons why Jesus Christ, Bible and all that in church, everything close to their heart. And this gave them universal acceptability, universal community, universal God, universal recognition, modern education, life guidance and all that thing, and opportunity, higher opportunity also it gave. But then, it also created, Christianity also created what? Division. Sarna, the original tribal people, following tribal religions, Christians, and then Hindus. So tribals were divided. Now, synodality is breaking slowly because of Christianity also. Okay, after the advent of Christianity, all the social organizations became different. Here, what you are seeing here on the left side, tribal social organizations, here church social organizations. They are different, more or less in the same line, but then still there are a little bit different. I cannot explain. And then the further woes and travels that affect the tribals what? In migration into the tribal field, such a lot of outsiders came. There are many reasons I cannot explain. Then industrialization. Tribal people are sitting over the national wealth. Forest, mountains, all filled with all minerals, you see. Therefore, industrialization, population, everything, factories and mines, everything came there. So these are the problems. Now everything, their society is breaking. So their social organization, community living, tribal language, tribal culture, tribal dance and songs, and everything is breaking. So their unity is breaking, you see. So it has related how the church has handled these things. Many things he has accepted, let it go, let it remain. Many things he has suppressed, many things totally he has banned. You see? And because of his suppression ban, such a lot of problems in the tribal life. Impact, good and bad. Bad is what? Everything is destroyed, like what I said. What is the need? Revitalize some things. Original institutions he cannot revitalize. It is gone. Forever it is gone. Jungle is gone, mountain is gone, industry has come, in-migration has come. Therefore, original clan-based, tribe-based communities are not there. You cannot. But the spirit of it you can keep up still, maintain. Tribal music and dance, you cannot. Original you cannot. Why? There are reasons. But then some spirit, some aspect of it you can do. Language, originally you cannot do at this moment. Reasons there are. But some aspect can be revived and maintained. Generosity of travel. Travel is very, very generous. I could not explain here. But that is gone because of the change factors. But some aspect can be revived. So also work cooperatives. The original thing is gone, but some aspect can be revived. Tribal attitude, same thing. What is the task ahead? Task, seeds of the virtues and strengths of the tribal synodality is still there. You see? Seeds are there. And this seed, this spirit can be revived. Not the original, this one. Challenges, further challenges, there is lethargy among the people, educated people, all these things, youth, alcohol, electronics and all that thing. Among the priests, from the priest side, from the religion side, insensitivity of the priests and religious towards the tribal culture and tribal social life, there is. And though it will take half a minute, take for example, one marriage, some priests and religious went. 20, 25 of them, I was there. These people are coming to wash their leg and wash their hands and all things. Everybody is saying, no need, no need, no need, no need. They were not the guests of that particular marriage. After that, they give them food and they send them back, but then they cannot treat them because they did not accept it. Okay, so insensitivity of the priests and religious on the tribal cultural ground, this is, and weaknesses and follies of the tribal, the priests and religious. And then there are some other things, okay, that's it. Many things are there, okay. Political allegiance is a problem. We have to tackle religious divisions, denominations, ethnicity within the 4 tribes and all that thing we have to. Thank you, that's all.
That's wonderful, Ignatius. Please take a moment of little silence to jot down some of the salient features of insights that we learn from the womb of the tribals. Questions? Well, dear friends, it's a time for us to have certain exchanges and conversation. We shall follow this particular method without getting dissipated. We shall focus on, first phase would be for Cosmon, second for Margaret, third would be for Ignatius. The first segment is for Cosmon. Anything related to Cosmon, let's collect the questions together so that he can comprehensively address issues. Because some of the questions would be repeated in different forms, we can avoid that. Now it's a time for addressing the questions to Cosmon. Okay, first you go ahead.
Excuse me.
First of all, I would like to congratulate wonderful presentation. We are gathering here for synodality, and synodality means participation, coming together and walking together and being together, and that is the purpose. And you were presenting and thing like Dalit individual church, it's being claimed, and how does it go about synodality, and approaching this point, how we will be able to tackle this?
Okay. Is it fragmentation or communion? Over here. Over to Cosmon again.
To Father Cosmon, there was a song. அடங்கி போக மாட்டோம் எவனுக்கும் தலைவணங்க மாட்டோம் தலித்து என்று சொல்வோம் நாங்கள் தலை நிமிர்ந்து நில்வோம். Meaning is, we are never bow head to high caste people. We are Dalits. We are feel too proud to say we are Dalit. 2 years before, my question is, 2 years before there were a protest, there was a suggestion to fill all the vacancy with the Dalit bishops. Will this pay way to the synodality in the church? Will it pay way to the synod in the church?
Okay, Nambikai.
This session has really jolted us all, because so far we have been discussing about what synod is. But this session has brought in a new element of, we claim, women participation and separate Dalit right and all. But my question is, while appreciating both of them, my question is, Father Cosmon, what would happen if we look for a different church? Again, wanted to disturb the nature of synodality. As synod, we would like to work together. Okay, some people are there differentiating themselves. We need to bring them together to the fold. Is it good that we fight as we are now, or should we create another church and create more, making the synodality, the nature of synodality, more problematic?
Good. Okay. Over there. 2 hands over there.
Actually, it's primarily to Father Cosmon, but actually to all the panelists in a sense. I see
all
this
the panelists
issue
noted down,
as
yeah.
justice. Almost 2/3 of the church are Dalits, and they are not definitely being treated fairly. If you look at the structural, just the facts on the ground. About 15 years ago, when I was finishing my theology, we had a Dalit teaching us about Dalits, and the stories he told us and the heartbreaking stories of his own experience was really really shook me up. And I even said sorry to him on behalf of the other people. I've mainly been in cities, so I've really not been exposed to this prejudice too much, both for most of my life.
Okay.
With regard, and the women, the same issue. 50% of the church's women, are they being given a proportionate, voice?
Good. Next one. Then you.
Yeah, my question is also to Father Cosmon. My question is that, Father, when we stress on independent right for Dalits, my question is, what will be the role of the pastors? Because we are much focusing on establishing a structure which could be nominal, because I feel if the theological formation is not happening, theological maturization which will end in a right, if that is not happening as an organic process, rather this right is coming like an opposition, like they have a right, so we have a right, we will get an identity. So if that is the cause for establishing a right or establishing an institution, I think it will merely be a nominal opposing structure rather than a theologically matured right which will really express the faith of the people. So what would your answer be there?
Good.
Father,
The last one, yeah.
my question is, do we need to have the title Dalit Christians? Is that enough to be called as Christians alone? And why do we need to have that title, Dalit Christians? And the second question is, in certain dioceses, the people, they themselves come forward and they ask the particular caste priest is needed for our diocese. So how this synodality is going to answer for those people, how they are going to educate them? And finally, we know caste is an evil, but why we Christians always, we know we have a very powerful God. So why do we always emphasize and magnify the evil and keeping God as like small boy?
Good. Yes, over to Cosmon. Over there. Many more?
Thank you for the question.
Shall we go ahead with the next round or take up the whole thing? Okay. Okay. Mic over here. The front row.
Good evening, Father Arokiraj.
Okay. Go ahead.
With this non-inclusiveness and this...
you are not audible. A little close to your...
Good evening, panel. And...
close to your microphone, yeah.
With non-inclusiveness and the lifting of this government is... Wait. With non-inclusiveness and the stifling environment government is creating, and with the news around the minorities and the anti-conversion bills, do you see the threat of losing these large Dalits or the marginalized, socially exploited to go back to their own religions? And what is your effort in protecting them from going back to their own religion, and how you would tackle this anti-conversion bills?
Okay. How to combat the Garvapasi phenomenon?
Yeah.
How to handle the situation when there is a confusion?
Yes.
Okay, good. Come.
First of all, my congratulations to all the presenters here for the very wonderful presentations that you have made. I want to make a presentation that whatever differentiation or discrimination that the Dalits face, it is not confined only to the Dalits. I would like to tell to you that our church is continually on the path of conversion. Conversions have to take place. When the new converts come, they get a label in our church. Even after 15 years, 20 years of their existence, active existence in the church, with the manifestation of the gifts of the Holy Spirit, they continue to be dismissed as converts. That is the thing. And what I have understood is, instead of going in with the solution of creating another denomination, as you were talking of, if I am rightly understanding, what I feel is, what is lacking in the Catholic Church is, we are not giving much importance to preach the Word of God. That is what is missing in our church. We are giving more importance to traditions rather than the Word. Probably we should be insisting that the Word of God, prominence to Word of God should become an essential part of the synodality here.
Good.
That is
No,
one point.
we
And
need-
another, I'll make quick.
No, not now, not now.
Yeah.
Now, just go ahead, sister.
Thank you, Father, first of all, for your very effective presentation. My question is now, since we are reflecting on the synodality or synodal journey, walking together, how can the church, including church leaders and church as people of God, journey together to promote communion and participation among Dalit and non-Dalits? Could you please suggest some points in this regard? Thank you.
Okay. He'll be integrating all questions.
So I am given 1 minute by the moderator to answer for the good questions. Thank you for the questions because it can sharpen my reflection also. First of all, what is the relationship between this demand for new individual church or right and synodality? Synodality is expressed in the form of communion, participation, and mission. So these three vital concepts which are expressed in different structures of the church, teaching, thinking, and so on, they are disconnected from the Dalit culture. They are strangers. Therefore, for a better communion, for a better participation, for a better mission, a Dalit individual church would be better than their being strangers within the three rites. That's what I would like to say. If you want to really exercise the synodality in Indian context, where 12 million people feel that they are strangers, for a better communion, for a better participation, for a better mission, for better evangelization, this fourth individual church will be the good solution in my opinion. Thank you.
Good. Over to Margaret. Just 2 or 3 interventions. She'll be intervening with 1 minute. We have been asked to cut down our time because of other many crowded programs to follow. Your questions to Margaret. Any observations or anything to be sharpened or deepened? Yes, sister, go ahead.
Thank you, Sister Margaret. I appreciate you for giving beautiful message, women and the women synodality in the church. In your statement, women are driving force behind the synodality. Yes, I agree. However, in the Catholic Church, we see women are treated very low and also less privileges are given. How you connect this message in your talk, and what are the better reflection you can give for us?
Okay. Any other intervention? Yeah, right at back. Assisi Saldana.
Sister Margaret, I resonate with your observations that the gender plays a very important role in the question of synodality. However, as a religious sister, do you think you represent the 9.5 million women, Christian women, when you talk about the role of women in the church? I've got nothing against women being priests, deacons, priests. Actually, in the Western Church, the best support for women priests is coming from the bishops and the priests themselves. I'm not so sure about that in India. I am for it, but to what extent do you speak on behalf of the 9.5 million Christian women in India? Because the religious sisters, I don't know how many thousand, 15,000, I think. No,
Okay, thank you,
that.
Father Assisi. Sister Margaret, your response for a single minute.
Yeah, women are the driving force, I said it, but I also said by being a driving force, we are also, the other way, we are not equally considered. We are still continue to be as a second-class citizens. Therefore, the proposal that I gave already, looking at a church that is a transformed church, which is more inclusive, which is more participatory, where the leadership could be more of inclusive, where the governance is more of synodal, by which all of us journey together as partners in accomplishing the mission of God. Okay, so it is a joint venture. It's not only male walking or a female walking, but the greatest challenge today is whether, when we think of the synodality, whether we can walk together to realize the kingdom of God. So we have to work with each other. Where about 2 points which I should have. This synodality should have the feminine face which is missing. That inclusion of femininity in the church function, structures, and its journey. And also this leadership to be considered as service. If we consider then the leadership, as we have been talking, it is the inverted pyramid, where we consider that although it is a circular, but then as of now what is existing, the change has to take place. Transformation has to take place. Only then the synod will be a successful one. To represent, I am a woman first of all, then only I become a religious, isn't it? Therefore the problem, it is not only a problem of religious claiming for a diaconate or a priesthood. Now it is a problem because the conscientization is not given. Awareness is not created by the common people, by the women in general. If this awareness is being created, it's not only the work of women, it is a work of every human person. Therefore, men and women, all of us will work together to have our space, our place in the church wherein the dream of God established in the kingdom of God will be realized. Thank you.
Okay. From the floor to Ignatius. Any interventions? Yeah, Sister Shalini. Come in the front. Any more hand across?
Father, you talked about where the tribals are. What about those who are migrating to major cities? For example, Delhi. The Delhi Archdiocese is comprised of 60% tribal Christians. You did not. So, what category would they come? Do they lose their tribalness, as the government is thinking of already talking about, when they migrate from their land? So do you also subscribe to that?
Good. Ignatius, pick up the microphone. It's there with you.
Actually, I did not touch on the migration issue because yesterday there was a panel. But here we are the source. Delhi is the destination. And both the places we are trying to work out something, I think our effort is not enough in both the places. Okay, I only said Delhi, Bombay, all the metros. Huh? So I think both the places that work in different areas, including all that thing, is not enough. We are trying to do something, that's all I can say.
Good. Thank you, friends. We have to move from ethnocentric obsession to the humble, inclusive reach out. We need to move from the patriarchal supremacy every way to the gender-sensitive dignity. We need to move from profit-oriented utilitarianism to the life-oriented egalitarianism. And finally, Dalits are the resources for Eucharistic culture of inclusion, though they might be asking for a separate church in view of synodality. When a rape is in progress, it has to be separated. So it has to be in terms of Eucharistic communion finally. And women, they are the driving force behind synodality. And tribals, the radical power for promoting egalitarian communion. We are searching. We do not know. That's why we need to discern, listen, and lovers are learners are listeners, and the listeners are promoters of synodality. Thank you so much. Over to the organizers.
Dear friends, as I said, Father Maria Arul Raja is like a TV anchor, extremely disciplined, strict, and a fine moderation of this session. Let's put our hands together to Father Maria Arul Raja. And I know we had very excellent and existential papers this evening, and I know you have a lot of questions because they're very relevant to our reality and to our existence. So let's put our hands together to all the presenters, including Father S.M. Michael. May I now invite to present the mementos to our dignitaries here, Sister Teresa, Mr. Kennedy, Novice Malkin, and Miss Kushi will come over and present the mementos to our fine personalities as a memory of this, our conference. Let's put our hands together to all our presenters and the moderator. Dear friends, a small announcement. All those who have taken lodge and boarding at St. Peter's, please leave the room key at the room itself. Don't carry home. We can't come after you. Okay. I call upon Father HOD to make an announcement.
Dear friends, now we are almost nearing the end of the grand finale of the National Conference. I would like you to take a break, because from 2:30 onwards you have been listening and listening, and it is good that you relax for 5 minutes so that you refresh yourselves to lend your ears to the most important part of the conference, where we will have highlights by Professor Dr. Felix Wilfred, and Sister Natalia from Rome is already online to address us. Therefore, just 5 minutes exactly. And then we also have a special valedictory address by Bishop Lawrence Pius, Most Reverend Dr. Lawrence Pius. So the most important part of the event, please remember that, take only 5 minutes and come back fast. I want all of you to get up and get out and come back.
Dear friends, it's not a tea break. It's not a tea break. So tea will be served, snacks will be served after the valedictory program. May I invite all the participants to come back to the auditorium and take your kind seats. May I invite all the participants who are at the back and who are around the auditorium to come over and take your respective seats. We shall right away begin with a short recap of all the sessions that we had today. Don't miss, kindly be present for the recap, the glimpses of all the sessions we had in these 3 days. A kind request, brothers and sisters, please take the front seats. Please take the front seats. You will have a good view of the video and the valedictory program. Dear friends, a very warm and hearty and fraternal brotherly welcome to this valedictory program. We have on the days the dignitaries, Most Reverend Dr. Lawrence Pius, the Bishop, Professor Dr. Felix Wilpret, Reverend Dr. Stanley Fernandez, Reverend Dr. Simon Pinto, Reverend Sister Shalini Mulakal, Mr. Nigel, the proprietor of ATC, and Mr. Peter Perdue. And friends, let's give a thunderous applause to the dignitaries on the days. Dear friends, Sister Nathalie from Rome, I think the secretary at the Synod there, is going to address us online. So a short presentation, kindly give your ear to an online virtual presentation.
to thank you on behalf of the Secretariat of Synod, especially on behalf of our General Secretary, Cardinal Mario Grech, and all of us, for this very important task you have done to reflect on synodality through this Swedish conference from the perspective of India. As we can remind in our preparatory document, it is stated that discerning the sign of the times of in our world in this time, we can really see, and I quote preparatory document 9, that synodality represents the main road for the church, called to renew herself under the action of the Spirit and by the listening to the word. So it's truly this process in which all the church is involved today with this phase for this moment throughout the dioceses, the different particular churches, really to listen to all the people of God and to experience a dialogue, a community discernment, a journey together that requires that ourselves we are educated by the Spirit to a truly synodal mentality, entering with courage and freedom
in progress.
of heart into a conversion process that is impossible for the continual reformation of the Church. So we are in this process, and we feel here that the role of theologians within this process is very, very important. So that's why I just want to thank you, encourage you, and I was struck by the methodology of your program, beginning by empirical study, pastoral and contextual, then having biblical reflections, but also reflection on synodality from an historical point of view, theological, and thinking about the future. In a way, you have embraced the methodology of the synod that is ready to begin with the reality, with the context, with the situation. It's more an inductive approach. And really, we think that the theologians within this process have a very important role. First, to listen to the sensus fidei, and especially to help to reread from a theological point of view the experience of the process. So I hope that this time of conference, this symposium, will help you to continue to accompany the local communities, to help dioceses, bishops' conference, really to reread the experience from to have a theological reflection. And we really feel that a key issue is also to foster a dialogue between bishops and theologians. That was a key during the Council, Second Vatican Council, to foster this dialogue that is very much needed. And I was also, and I want to thank you for the different topics and themes you have raised that really underline key dimension of this synod. I mean, listening to all the diversity of the people of God, especially the poor, the peripheries, the women, the young people, also the ecumenical dimension, the link between synodality and interreligious dialogue, that is the same spirit of dialogue. And my conclusion is just also to encourage you to continue to think. We feel that's an important topic and issue about what is the role of theology in a synodal church, how to do theology within this synodal ecclesiology, that is the ecclesiology of the people of God, and also to reflect on the past. Theologians together and theology has to do to really continue a journey together and to help to achieve a synodal conversion of the church. And one of of the newness, as you see, of this new style of church within the synodal vision is truly to foster a discernment in common. That means also pastoral and ecclesial discernment. And we need new practices to articulate spiritual experience, theological reflection, pastoral practices, and canon law. And I think there is a call to foster a theology of dialogue to support this process of discernment in common and to do a listening theology to contribute as a theologian and as theology to this synodal path. So my last word is just to thank you. I would be very happy to read the contributions when you will gather them. And we feel also that the contribution of India, but also of Asia from a continental point of view, because you know that a synodal church is a church of local churches, and this process really begins at the grassroots and want to help to really listen to the different voices of the particular churches. And I feel that India and Asia have a specific contribution to give, as in a synodal church, we are a learning church and everybody has something to learn from the others. And I think also the universal church has something to learn from youth church, that through your culture, you have a way to emphasize maybe better than in other countries what is a harmony, but through a plurality and a diversity. So thank you in advance for everything you will continue to do, and we are in communion on this synodal path of the church. And I pray for you and for the church in India and for your important missions as theologians. Thank you.
Very Reverend Sister Natalie Pekka, on behalf of Most Reverend Dr. Peter Machado, the Chancellor of St. Peter's Pontifical Institute, Most Reverend Dr. Lawrence Pius, the Vice Chancellor of St. Peter's Pontifical Institute, Reverend Dr. Joseph Titus, the President of St. Peter's Pontifical Institute, and the staff, and the presenters, the moderators, and all the participants, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to you very heartily for sparing your precious time and for addressing our participants. Thank you very much. So we will give our hands to Sister.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
A very good evening to you, dear friends. A greatly anticipated national conference is at its last leg. What emerged as a wild dream went unfolding before us as an unprecedented event. It would not be an exaggeration if I may say that the last 3 days were incredibly exhilarating, impregnated with wit and wisdom, fun and friendship. Now, without any further delay, may I call upon Most Reverend Dr. Lawrence Pius, Bishop of Dharmaburi and Vice Chancellor of St. Peter's Pontifical Institute, to give expression to his noble thoughts.
Dignitaries on the dais, and participants. I see quite a lot of new faces. So the students will put up with the old joke which I have cracked here 3 years back or 2 years back, namely that a bishop was asked to give a talk of 15 minutes for a very select and learned audience. He had no time, so he asked his secretary to prepare the 15-minute talk. And when the actual day came, the bishop started speaking. The talk took 1 full hour. Then somebody told him, Bishop, we gave you only 15 minutes, you spoke 1 hour. So he called the secretary. He was very angry. I told you to prepare only 15 minutes talk. What did you do? And the secretary replied to the bishop, My lord, I prepared only 15-minute talk, but I also attached Xerox copies, 3 Xerox copies. You read all of them. I'll try to be as brief as possible. First of all, heartfelt congratulations to the Department of Missiology, St. Peter's Institute, for this well-organized seminar, national seminar. Chiefly, the head of the department, Father Lawrence, and the inspiration behind the seminar, Father Felix Wilfred, and all the staff and students of the department, and all those who helped to make this a success. This national seminar had kept its national character. Several ways we can say. For example, even ethnicity has been respected. Tribals, Dalits, and so on. Practically every part of the country was represented. Women speakers were there among the presenters. Particular case studies have been taken up. For example, dioceses of Chengalpettu and Kota. Much thought and planning has gone into this national seminar, and a very comprehensive perspective was given to us because we approached these last 3 days the synodality from various angles: empirical, biblical, historical, canonical, theological, and also the subaltern perspective. Now, what would be the carry-home message from these 3 days? Different people will carry different messages, but I thought 3 points were highlighted often. First of all, I just give those 3 points. I think most will agree with me. First of all, that the synod is something constitutive of the church. Constitutive of the church. And the church, from now on, cannot function and should not function in any other way. And this has to be translated at the universal as well as the local church levels. At the local church level, we have the Diocesan Pastoral Committee, Diocesan Synods, Senate of Priests, Parish Councils, Financial Councils, and so on at the local church. Secondly, there has been a clear re-emphasis that the local church should reach out not only to the Catholics in the area, parish boundaries or diocesan boundaries, but also all the people of God in the diocese, in the parish. It is not something new, but it has been re-emphasized. Thirdly, a take-home message for me is, we spoke so much about communion, ecclesiology of communion, and that the church is a communion of communions. If you want to live communion, we in India have to take a very strong stand against casteism and every form of exclusivism. So these are the 3 messages which for me were prominent in the national seminar. Now I have a few suggestions. while heartily congratulating the organizers, I take the liberty of being Vice Chancellor of the Institute to offer my suggestions for better performance or even better performance in the future seminars. First of all, it's a truism to say after Vatican II that the hour of laity has come. And Pope Francis has said, the hour of the laity has come, but the clock seems to have stopped. The clock seems to have stopped. There were, in my opinion, there could have been rather more presenters, paper presenters from the laity. Most of them were clergy or a few nuns were there. More paper presenters would have been better from the laity, especially women lay presenters. And also, more lay people could have been preferred during the question answers and interventions. First preference should have been given to the laity, then the priests and religious. So I was wondering whether, in spite of all our goodwill, clericalism in some form of or other is still present, was present here also. My second suggestion, 60 papers were presented during these 3 days. A very ambitious and worthwhile project, but I would suggest there should have been less number of papers, especially, for example, in some sessions there were 4, could have been cut to 3. Where there were 3, it could have been cut to 2, and more chances could have been given for interventions, clarifications, and interactions. Third, role of the Holy Spirit. Role of the Holy Spirit. At the very inaugural session, Archbishop Peter Machado said, one of the dangers for synodality, one of the obstacles is intellectualism. I wonder if we have steered clear of intellectualism in this national seminar, because the protagonist or the main person in synodality is the Holy Spirit. So I would have wished that each day at least, if not each session, began with a hymn to the Holy Spirit or at least a prayer to the Holy Spirit to show that the whole thing is animated by the Holy Spirit. He is the central figure. And it's already we should live out the synodality here in this seminar. So these are my 3 suggestions, and it was picked up from talking to a few people at random. They confirmed my own thinking. Now I come to the conclusion. First of all, the path is not there. When we speak about synod, present synod, the path is not there. The way is not there. It has to be made by walking. It has to be made by walking. Second, I give 2 quotations of Pope Francis, then I sit down. First of all, talking about communion. He says, communion and mission. First quotation, communion and mission risk remaining somewhat abstract or just a devout wish unless we cultivate an ecclesial praxis that expresses the concreteness of synodality at every step of our journey and activity. From abstract to concrete. Concreteness of synodality at every step of our journey and activity, encouraging real involvement on the part of each and all, from the bottom to the top. Second quotation is also similar, talking about ecclesiology of communion. Pope says, we must view the Presbyterial Council in the diocese, that is the Senate, and the College of Consultors as organs of communion, which only to the extent that these organizations keep connected to the base and start from people and their daily problems, can a synodal church begin to take shape. So start from the base, and all these structures we have in the local churches have to listen to the base. So the Pope has wanted a people's church, a people's synod. May it become a reality in India. Thank you.
Lips speak what the heart is full of. It was indeed full of wisdom and thought-provoking. Thank you, dear Bishop. God writes the gospel not in the Bible alone, but in the intellect, enlightened minds too. The last 3 days were a living testimony to the words of philosopher Ian-Jacques Rousseau. We were truly overwhelmed by the wealth of knowledge that flowed in this campus for the last 3 days. Let us then tune our ears now to the wisdom of Professor Dr. Felix Wilfred, a former member of the International Theological Commission of the Vatican, as he revisits the entire symposium.
Dear Bishop Lawrence Pius, dignitaries on the dais, and dear friends, the program announced here is some highlights of the conference. It's somewhat ambitious. I don't dare to do that. You have an entire booklet in which abstracts of all the papers are there. It gives you a comprehensive understanding of what has happened in the last 3 days. So no intention, no presumption of presenting anything very comprehensive. I would word this like this: the perceptions of the 3-day conference of a participant. My perception. You may have your perception. So from the limited perspective, I want to share with you a few things. First of all, I want to start with the significance of the event. Unfortunately, for the past few decades, I would say from the 1980s, the church in India has been very lethargic, very much inward-looking, also because of the ritual conflict which affected the Catholic Bishops of Conference of India and drained its energy, which should have been directed to solve and address the problems than addressing the internal power conflicts within the church. It's unfortunate. So I see this conference as a wake-up call for the entire church in India to address the issues that affect the people, what moves this society in the world, politics, economics, etc., in the spirit of the church in the modern world. There is no synodality without referring to Gaudium et Spes, the important document of the church in the modern world. Otherwise, we'll be all looking only inwardly, So this is, I think it's a wake-up call. Of course, we heard about the possible visit of the Holy Father to India. I hope it's not another Jumla, this invitation. But we are happy, but it should not be a distraction, a triumphalistic distraction. That is my personal fear. instead of addressing, if it is directed to the concerns of the people, of the world, society, we are very happy. If it becomes simply a distraction, an opportunity for triumphalism of the church, then I think we should be very careful about this. This conference has awakened us to refocus our attention to the problems of within the church and also outside. One of the participants during a conversation told me something like this, that after the conference, Father D.S. Amalorpodas organized 1981 on the church in India in the struggle for a new society, 1981. This is perhaps the largest and most significant conference of the church in India. I thought this is a very, very powerful statement. I do not know whether there is anyone who attended 1981, this great conference at NBCLC. Is there anyone? No, I was one. And I could identify S.M. Michael. That's the only person I could identify, but he's not there. Does not matter. But that was a watershed conference. So this is, in a way, in the perception of this participant, it was something like that. Rich in its content, yes. As Bishop said, too many papers possibly, but at the same time, it's not only we who benefit, but it's going to be published and it's going to reach out a lot of people. In that sense, hopefully it will generate interaction in the church in India with all those papers, riches and backgrounds. And congratulations and sincere appreciation, I'm sure, from all of you and myself to the Department of Missiology of St. Peter's Pontifical Institute, which has undertaken this magnificent task and excellently and wonderfully executed it. We want to give a big clap to it's a great event. So much of preparation, as you could see, has gone into it. Therefore, the faculty and the students, the 11 students who are very active, MTS students, they were busy like bees going around, attending to every part of it, and I wish them all well. Secondly, I think this conference has put the Missiology Department and the Pontifical Institute of St. Peter's in liaison with the whole of the church in India, in every part of India, which goes well for the future of this department and this institute. And therefore, we wish, as the Latins they say, vivat, crescat et floreat. Let it live, flower, and grow and flower. All the best. The conference, I think, has created a mood for a fresh thinking in the church in India. I spoke about the liturgy, but it has created a mood for a fresh thinking in the church in India. It's an occasion and an opportunity for the church in India to lift its hearts and spirit upwards in the direction of the kingdom of God. It's also an occasion for the examination of conscience of the church. Some of the interventions were very, very sharp and powerful, which point out good diagnosis. Those questions pointed out a very, very, very sharp instances of issue, the weak points, fault lines in the church in India, which needs to be diagnosed deeply before we seriously undertake this journey of synodality. The conference was very much contextualized. We spoke about not things in Europe and America and Canada, but what happens in our country. The papers and the interventions were very, very contextualized, situated, and the methodology, as Bishop Lawrence pointed out, is from bottom up. Started from the empirical situation of what has happened, the participatory structures It's a few case studies. Those instances are some kind of glimpses which gives us a taste of what's happening, what has possibly happened or happening in the church in India. Next is the comprehensiveness. Bishop pointed out to that. There was a biblical aspect, there was historical, there was theological, and then there was pastoral, subaltern, many, many things. And some of the points to remember, some like telegraphic, you can say, equality of all the faithful, collegiality, people of God, and sense of faith, sensus fidelium, etc., etc. Moral ethics of mercy and compassion, the anthropological approach to synodality. These were some of the themes which were highlighted. We need to evaluate, because we say the church in India on the path of synodality. The image of journey is there, which is beautiful, because repeatedly, as has been said, synodality is a process than a single event. And that is the greatness of Pope Francis. He has converted into what was traditionally an institutional one-time event, once in 5 years or something, into a process involving the whole church, and making it as possible. But we need to also evaluate the existing, because a journey of synodality starts with the diagnosis of what is happening. A doctor needs to diagnose what is the problem. So we need to diagnose, otherwise all that we speak will be simple rhetoric and anecdotal. In that sense, I would like to point out a few things, giving you an analogy, it's more a metaphor, of a great scientist who wanted to demonstrate that a frog obeys. When a human voice speaks, it obeys. Terrific. So he took a frog, the audience was there, he put it on the top and put a paper there and said, "Frog, now jump." Jumped onto the paper. Everybody clapped. Because scientists said, "Jump," it jumped. Then what he did, stealthily cut 2 of the limbs, legs of the frog, and put it here, and then they didn't see it. Now he said, "Frog, don't jump." It did not jump, because it did not have 2 legs. It had only 2 legs. So happens sometimes in the church. We are asked to march, we are asked to jump, but there are no 2 legs, no limbs. We are bound, we are chained by few things which you need to, that's the diagnostic part, which needs to undertake. Otherwise, as I said, the whole discourse and the conference could be simply a rhetoric and anecdotal. What are these elements of analysis, diagnosis we need to take into account? Positively, let us say that the council, the intention of introducing in the light of the people of God certain participatory structure have been to some extent successful. We cannot deny it. It has given a sense of agency, even if it is confusing, etc., etc., and yearning for the people to participate in things of the church. So that we cannot deny. However, there have been serious obstacles which need real surgery. Let me name some of them without elaborating them. The first of all, which came out also here, the deep clericalism, which the Pope never ceases to condemn, comment upon. Clericalism, no need to elaborate that. Structural causes. 2, casteism. This is specific to India. Casteism, unequal church, where people, beautifully Father Cosmon presented the paper, you saw, where more than 60% of the population of India, Catholics, are Dalits, but they are prevented from being members of the parish council. This is absolute. You cannot imagine Christianity which professes equality of all you prevent these oppressed people from being participant in the parish council. No. It's just a small example. Father showed the cemetery. Innumerable examples. I think this is a moment of examination of conscience. Otherwise, it's a mere hypocrisy. We speak about synodality without talking about caste and casteism in the church, including the leaders of the church, bishops and the clerics. Probably, it is there deeply in the clerics, much more entrenched than ordinary people. Third, patriarchy. Patriarchy. That means the domination of the male that continues very strongly in the church. The church simply reflects what is in the society. Church is expected to be a counter-cultural society, a different society, a different vision of realities, but simply it becomes simply a mirror of what is happening in the society. The same domination or suppression of women is happening within the church. Therefore, the voice of the women calling for equality and participation is a very legitimate one. And three, there is no separation of power in the church. So it's like you cut the limbs of the frog and ask to march. No, you cannot. Because there is a system in which there is no separation of power of legislative and executive and judiciary, all concentrated. So I have spoken at the canon law faculty of the University of Louvain. There were about 200 participants from there. I told that canon law is an anomaly as a legal system because there's no separation of power. Law is meant to defend the justice. So when you have concentration of power, no separation of power, that justice is not ensured. So this is what I call the Achilles heel in the church system, which needs to be seriously addressed. I do not know. I hope the Pope will have some way of doing this separation of powers, which is very crucial and radical. Fourth, there is a strong individualism and selfishness over against common good. The individual, whether it's a parish council, pastoral council, people come with their own agenda. I was in the Senate of the University of Madras. I know in the Senate when people talk, same fellow, in one meeting he will say, let us say in the Department of Computer Science, what is the eligibility for a lecturer? He will say that you must have a PhD in the subject. Okay. So that means he has somebody in the head, he has already a candidate. Therefore, qualification is specified that you must have a PhD. The same fellow, after, a few months, he will say, there's no need for, in the subject, any related subject. So somebody who has a mathematics can also be eligible for. So how it changes, because according to the selfishness, there is an agenda, hidden agenda, that can happen in the parish council, pastoral council, financial council, every council. Whether clergy or the Christian faithful, anybody can. So the important thing is to overcome. That is why I think in the synodal document also it is said the importance of conversion and having a new habit of mind. What Paul VI said, promulgating the canon law, novus habitus mentis, a new attitude of mind. You cannot practice synodality without a new attitude of mind. And that is, attitudinal change is very important to be able to be a listening church, a church which is really moving forward. Then let me come to the moving towards the future. The first thing is, as I said, first and foremost, creating a new mindset through conversion. Second, to create and expand spaces of freedom in the church. Create and expand spaces of freedom in the church. Father Lawrence, one of the announcements said, how Gaudium Spes number 17 clearly says that freedom is a mark of the modern human beings. And it is a core of the gospel. It's not against. Freedom is not against the gospel. It is core. Therefore, if you speak about freedom, you are speaking about the gospel. So no synodal church without expanding the freedom within the church. And more specifically, I thought it came out, how do we expand the freedom within the church? How do you call, the panel on canon law was very, very good. I really liked it because very precise and very clear. It came out, for example, in the paper of Bishop Antonisamy. There are instances which many people do not know. Many leaders themselves do not know, unfortunately, which he pointed out those instances, which says that it is mandatory that a bishop consults. Or in other instances, like alienation of church property, etc., cases, few instances, or in other cases, get the consent, without which the act of the bishop or leader is invalid. So this is one example. There are instances. So we could propose that these instances can be expanded. There can be more other instances where the bishop, the leader, is supposed to get mandatorily the consent, or mandatorily must get the, consult, without which his act is invalidated. I think so. Here's a certain liminal position, the anthropologists call liminal, the border position, where it is possible for a transition, very positive transition, expanding the spaces of freedom where authority is constrained and made to consult and take co-responsibility. Yes. And added to that, what I mentioned in my the talk on the first day, reference to Apostolica Solicitudo of Pope Paul VI, wherein he said, just only reminding you, where he said that the synod could be empowered to make decisions. Therefore, it does not become a simple consultative body to be ratified by the Pope. Why don't we practice it also regarding, the various participatory bodies now? These bodies could be empowered to be decision making, because people are very disappointed. You talk and talk and talk, nothing happens. So if effective transformation is to take place, there needs to be a decision making which could be done in the way proposed by Paul VI. These are what I call liminal spaces which can be expanded, help to expand, create spaces of freedom in the church. Yes. The next point I would like, specifically to India, I want to reiterate what I said on the first day, that the synodal structure must be for all the churches. As it is, this is one of the proposals which Indian Church could give to the Secretary of the Synod. That, as you know, that it is for the Oriental churches, that is 2 sui juris churches in India. My question has been, last few years I've been raising this question, why do you discriminate the Latin church? There was a time when the Orientals said, we Orientals are discriminated. Now I say the poor Latins are discriminated, because we are very, very dependent church, whereas the Oriental churches are quite autonomous and independent because they have synodal structure. Most of the things they have transacted. Please don't be afraid of the synodal structure. It is better that we fight among ourselves and come to conclusion than we get decisions from somewhere else. In the beginning there will be a messy, but they will find a modus vivendi operandi. In the long run, it is, otherwise we will be like the British. There are people who said, let the British be here, otherwise we will be fighting. No. We need to have a synodal structure for the Latin Church. This is an important proposal we want to make to the Secretariat of Synod. I mean, this could be also in other countries. And reason is not only because the Orientals have, this is the practice of the early Christian churches, early churches, centuries. The Orientals only have preserved this tradition, which Latins we have not. Therefore, this is very important. Secondly, you see, we have the Bishops' Conference in India, of course, 3 conferences, CBCI, the major, the umbrella conference, etc. And we have provincial and regional conferences, which is, has a long root in history. Now we need to activate the provincial councils and the regional councils, because in ancient times, they were the ones who knew the local situation and were able to come out with a proper decision, choose the right candidates for bishopric, etc., etc. Provincial council. There was a metropolitan bishop of the city and the suffragan bishops. Now there is what I call diocesan individualism. There is the bishops gather together, they make a decision, then the one bishop says, it does not apply here in my diocese. No. This is absolutely against principle of synodality and collegiality, co-responsibility. Unpardonable. You should feel bound morally. I would say the mere moral boundedness is inadequate. Legally, there must be provisions so that every bishop executes in the province what has been decided in the provincial councils and the regional councils. And that takes me to another larger problem which has remained unresolved, but which I hope in this synod, which happens in Rome, but we can make our proposal. That is to say, the theological and juridical status of episcopal conferences. As it is, it has no teeth. It needs to be endowed with greater power so that, synodality can effectively function. In this connection, I would say how the provincial councils and regional councils and national bishops' conferences function. Here is precisely the point. What happens now is a formality. I don't want to water down. I know many good things are happening. Having said that, we must say it's a functional church. They come, there is a half a dozen or 1 or 2 dozen commissions. They are all going to report reading. The secretary of the commission comes, reads the report. You can circulate it. Today we are in the digital world. They can read. You should discuss the problems and issues of the people, not administrative. Panchayat we say in Tamil, no? Panchayat pandrathu, no? The 2 kostis, then you somehow come to settlement. Half of the time, 90% of the time is spent on settling disputes, and discussing on administrative things, etc., instead of what affects this people, this country, this nation, this region. Therefore, if I have the power, I will introduce a new canon, formulate a new canon law. Sorry, I'm too, maybe it's without sounding to be conceited, a canon law could be formulated something like this. No act of national bishops' conferences, regional conferences will be valid if it is not preceded by consultation with the Christian faithful. Therefore, before every national bishops' conference, regional bishops' conference, there should be mandatorily a consultation where the agenda also must come from the people. So the agenda for the conferences must come from the people. They will say this is a problem or this is what has to be come about, So we have to take this into account so that otherwise the canon could say that the acts are null and void. And finally, I come to the importance of inclusive synodality. Inclusive. It already came, I said, that is to say that if we have, the people, Dalit people, who are 60% of the Catholic community in India, are excluded in many ways. We need to think of redress this and how can we make them inclusive communities so that a synodal process, otherwise it will be a limping church, as St. Augustine would say, a limping church. So we want a church which is sane and which breathes with two lungs. Then we have to take along the excluded people, whether it's Dalits, whether women, etc., etc. Therefore, moving towards an inclusive church, and it's that context Father Cosmos spoke about the proposal of a Dalit right and individual church, which is legitimate. We have argued how it is founded in history, theologically, pastorally, canonically. It has foundation, and therefore the Indian church will be made not of three churches but four Isuyuri churches, where there will be a Dalit individual church also. This is to speak about an inclusive synodality. I think I am sure that now you have many things to do and you are getting ready to leave. But I hope you will carry with you some of the things which have been spoken here, the questions raised, etc. Not answers, but go also to search for, the local communities from wherever you are come, so that this whole process which Pope Francis wanted, synodality, and to culminate in the Synod of Bishops 2023, may be a new opportunity for the flourishing of the universal church and also the church in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Father Felix. An event of this magnitude won't happen overnight. The wheels went rolling months ago. Incredible individuals and dedicated committees have toiled day in and day out. What is gratitude without gladness without gratitude? May I now invite Reverend Dr. Stanislav Fernandez, Registrar and Professor of Missiology at St. Peter's Pontifical Institute, to give voice to his sentiments.
Most Reverend Dr. Lawrence Pius, Bishop of Dharmapuri and Vice Chancellor of St. Peter's Pontifical Institute, Professor Dr. Felix Wilfred, former member of the International Theological Commission Vatican, Mr. Nigel Fernandez, Dr. Sister Shalini, Dr. Peter, Reverend Dr. Simon Pinto. I would like to express my deep sentiments of gratitude to His Most Reverend Dr. Peter Machado, the Chancellor of St. Peter's Pontifical Institute and Archbishop of Bangalore. Archbishop has been gracious enough to be present for the inaugural program. We are grateful to him. Kindly give an applause. Yes. We are immensely grateful for the persons of Most Reverend Dr. Felix Machado, Archbishop of Vasai and Secretary General of CBCI. Almost 3 days he is here and amidst his busy schedule. Most Reverend Dr. James Anaparambil, Bishop of Alleppey, Most Reverend Dr. Lawrence Pius, the Vice Chancellor of St. Peter's Pontifical Institute, and Bishop Anthony Sami, Bishop of Palayam Kottai. Your presence has enhanced the character of this conference. From the bottom of my heart, our heart, we offer you thanks. Professor Dr. Wilfred, former member of International Theological Commission of Vatican, is a guide and counselor to any of our efforts in the Department of Missiology. Thank you, Professor. We fondly remember our donors. Without them, this conference wouldn't have been materialized. We are all cash-strapped due to pandemic, but with generous donors such as MEP Society, ATC Publications, in the person of Dr. Nigel, we have arrived here. Thank you very much. I would like to acknowledge the contributions of all those who have presented papers at this conference. The resource persons have brought their expertise and experience in their field. Together with the resource persons, several persons have moderated the sessions. We have a whole host of them, can't take individual names. In a single word, we express our gratitude to you. Thank you. A sincere Gratitude to Reverend Dr. Joseph Titus, the President of St. Peter's Pontifical Institute, Reverend Dr. Richard Brito, the Rector of the Seminary, Reverend Dr. Jude Nirmal Das, the Vice Rector. We are assured of your support and encouragement. Thank you. The Institute and seminary staff collaborated in putting up this program, which is an example of solidarity in action. An event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels start rolling months ago. It requires a lot of planning, organizing, coordination, and execution. We have been fortunate enough to be backed up by a team of very motivated and dedicated as stage, auditorium, reception, media, electricians, food, accommodation, invitation, liturgy, choir, and parallel session committees. The success of the program lies in their effective functioning. They have done well, a fantastic job. Congratulations and thanks. Give a big applause, round of applause. And you participants, without you, the program would have been a talking shop here. Your listening and interactions have given life to this conference. You have listened not with your ears, but with your hearts. Words are not enough to thank for all your active participation. Thank you. Last but not least, the architect of this conference, who literally dreamt and slogged for the fruition of this conference, and it is the person of Reverend Dr. Lawrence Anthony. Give him a thunderous applause. Thanks, everyone.
It was indeed crispy, crunchy, and tasty. Gratitude, dear Father. It stands on this mega event of learning and relearning. May I invite for the Institute anthem.
Oh, sing the great apostle in memory of the rock, the basis of that fabric which fears no tempest shall, to our Creator's glory that festal chant shall burst. We praise the second shepherd to glorify the first. O Peter, doctrine and torch of hope, the very type of fire and wisdom from above. Oh, sing the great apostle of the rock, the basis of that fabric which fears no tempest, to our Creator's glory that festal chant shall burst. We praise the second shepherd to glorify the first.
Friends, there's one last announcement just for 1 minute. All the papers presented here at this national conference will be published by ATC Publishers. Mr. Gil Fernandez, the proprietor of the ATC Publishers, has kindly accepted to present all this, to publish all the papers into 2 volumes. And he will be announcing today some concession. Those who book today pre-publication orders, those who place pre-publication orders will have a concession. I think he will be announcing.